Hello, good morning, Sitaram, and welcome to all our brothers and sisters listening out there in Trinidad and Tobago and up the Caribbean worldwide. Welcome again to this another in the series Addiction and Recovery. I'm your host, Ram Naresh Dwarika, and I want to remind our listeners that this program is being brought by Radio and TV Jagriti. It will also be posted on Facebook and YouTube at the end of the program. For those of you who can't stay for its entirety or who would like to refer it to someone else, and that the same program would be repeated again on this media at 10 p.m. tonight. I also want to thank the operators, Mr. Ramdhani and all of them who were sourcing these developmental videos that you saw preceding this program. Such valuable information for employees and employers. It takes all of these things to make us happy, contented, and less vulnerable to have to use chemicals to bolster our feelings and change our moods and all of that. This morning, I've had a lot of requests. I want to thank all those people who have been calling in between the programs and who have been giving suggestions. I have one particular caller who suggested that, this morning, if I could give some information on what are some of the questions that a drinker, a drug user can consider, to make that determination as to whether they have a problem with alcohol or drugs. And I thought I would use a very valuable little pamphlet that is available at Alcoholics Anonymous. This pamphlet is now labeled with a heading that says "Who Me" with a big question mark. It is green in color. You will not be able to see it if I put it up here because of the green background, but it has helped millions of people worldwide to make that determination as to whether they are an alcoholic or not. Having worked in the medical fraternity, I'm also familiar with what is used in that setting to determine whether a person is an alcoholic or not, and I will just briefly touch on that as well. In medicine, most medical practitioners out there would use what is called the CAGE questionnaire, CAGE. The C stands for cutting down. So one of the questions they will ask a person presenting with a problem related to alcohol or alcoholism, it may be they might probably have insomnia, they might be depressed, anxious, would have gotten into some accident or ill as a result of their drinking or drug use. And if the doctor suspects that you might have a problem with alcohol, he would probably engage you with these questions, whether you have ever tried to cut down on your drinking. And as I say that, I'm asking you listening out there, if you or anyone you know have been trying to cut down on their drinking, because it suggests that you're becoming aware that the drinking is excessive and it is causing a problem. So that is a key question. If you've been trying to cut down, it means that you're starting to develop some insight that drinking and alcohol is causing a problem. Then the A in CAGE stands for annoyed. Do you get annoyed when people talk to you about your drinking? That is also a very powerful indicator that you are aware, but you don't want to be reminded, that you have developed some insight. That in fact, if somebody told you, well, you should cut down on your orange juice or anything like that because you're diabetic, you probably will not get as annoyed. So that is another question that is asked. And the third, the G, stands for feel guilty. Do you feel guilty after a drinking bout? Do you suffer with remorse? That is also a sign of a loss of control. Because if that has happened once or twice, and then the average person realizing when they drink it causes a problem and they will stop. So that is also guilt is an indicator that you are aware or you are now losing control over your drinking. And the last one, the E, stands for an eye opener. We call it a reviver here in Trinidad. Some people refer to it as the revolver. If you're reached to the stage where you have to take that reviver, you have to take that drink in the morning to steady your arms, your hands from shaking and all of that, that is a clear sign that you are now in the chronic stage of alcoholism. So the CAGE questionnaire is what is being used by most medical professionals and has been found to be very effective. However, a lot of people may not end up by the doctor and be subjected to these questions. They're still out there thinking that they are social drinkers. I want to say up front that the intention of this program and of this media house is not to dry up the world. I have no problem with anyone who can take a drink and enjoy it. And there are many, many people. I mean, 90% of the people who drink in the world are people who could still drink and enjoy a drink and use it as a social lubricant and, you know, and I have no problem. We have no problem with that. The problem, though, is that everyone who became alcoholic did not start off with that intention. Everyone who ended up on the streets homeless because of drinking and drug use had never started off with that intention. They started off just like every one of you listening there who are social drinkers. They would have started just out of curiosity, because in this culture, in Trinidad and Tobago, in particular in the Caribbean, you know, drinking is so interwoven with having a good time, with social activities. Christmas coming up and everybody's already stocking up, I'm sure, with their drinks and the wine and the whatever. And so that it is part of our culture. So that a lot of people start off by drinking recreationally out of curiosity. And gradually, drinking is a disease. It has been recognized so by the World Health Authority. It's a disease, but it is a disease that is progressive. That most people who become chronic alcoholics, they started off as social drinkers. They were had this is a very slow, the onset is very slow, so that you don't realize, very rare the person will drink one time and end up being homeless. No, that does not happen. It takes time. So that this is why the mean age for alcoholism is much later than the mean age, the average age for other addictions like cocaine and heroin and all of those, and marijuana. Those are much earlier. You can become addicted to those and start having problems at a much earlier age. In Trinidad and Tobago, the research has shown that the mean age for alcoholism is around 35, because it takes a long time for a person to start realizing that it is causing problems. So this morning, I'm going to use this questionnaire that I've borrowed from Alcoholics Anonymous, and it has what is called 12 questions. It used to be referred to as the 12 questions in the old days, and it says, "Is AA for you?" It says only you can decide whether you want to give AA a try, whether you think it can help you. We who are in AA came because we finally gave up trying to control our drinking. We still hated to admit that we could never drink safely. Then we heard from other AA members that we were sick. We thought so for years. We found out that many people suffered from the same feelings of guilt and loneliness and hopelessness that we did. We found out that we had these feelings because we had the disease of alcoholism. We decided to try and face up to what alcohol had done to us. And here are some of the questions we tried to answer honestly. If we answered yes to 4 or more questions, we were in deep trouble with our drinking. See how you do. Remember, there is no disgrace in facing up to the fact that you have a problem. And as a person in recovery myself, I am going to probably supplement some of these questions with my own answers as we go along. Question 1. Have you ever decided to stop drinking for a week or so, but only lasted for a couple of days? Now, most of us in AA made all kinds of promises to ourselves and to our families. We could not keep them. Then we came to AA. AA said, just try not to drink for today. If you do not drink today, you cannot get drunk today. You cannot get drunk, that is. So that I can remember in my own experience, about this time of year, I would be promising my friends, my family, and so on. You'll see from next year, I will stop, from the first. And honestly, so I was not just saying that. And I would remember on Olia's night, I would be, I lived in South and we would hear a siren of the using factory on at midnight it would blow and I would go down on my knees and I would pray and say, God, I'm going to stop drinking. I will resolve to stop. And with all good intention. And the next morning it would be New Year's and everybody would be coming, my brother-in-laws and all the relatives, they gathered at my parents' house for New Year's. That was, Christmas, they spend it by their in-laws and all of that. But all my sisters and brother-in-laws would come for New Year's Day. And then my grandmother, with all good intention, or somebody would say, okay, everybody's here, just take a drink today and from tomorrow. We know you want to stop. You promise you're going to stop. You'll stop from tomorrow. And guess what? That would take me for another year again. So I could identify with this, how many times I would promise myself to the point where I stopped trying to stop because I know I stopped promising anyone. Question 2. Do you wish people would mind their own business about your drinking and stop telling you what to do? And you remember the cage question, yeah? Where a lot of people, once they start becoming addicted to any drug, they wish people would mind their business. Don't tell me about that. That's my business. And here's what AA says. In AA, we do not tell anyone to do anything. We just talk about our own drinking, the trouble we got into, and how we stopped. We will be glad to help if you want us to. So that the point is, when a person goes to AA and they listen to other people talking about their experiences, they are able to identify and they realize not only they were suffering, at least this is what a lot of alcoholics think, they alone suffered like that, then to realize there are other people. And that is what gives you a sort of courage. You understand? I too, when I was drinking like this, I thought, I never wanted anybody to know. The next morning, I'd be sick inside, but I'd be smiling outside because I didn't want my friends to think that I was a weakling or something, or I couldn't handle my drinking. Now, question 3, have you ever switched from one kind of drink to another in the hope that this would keep you from getting drunk? And I know of friends who would drink all kinds of things, milk of magnesia, and some suggest you could drink oil. Some would change the chaser. They would blame the soft drink for getting them drunk. And here's what AA says. We tried all kinds of ways. We made our drinks weak or just drank beer, or we did not drink cocktails or only drank on weekends. You name it, we tried it. But we drank anything with alcohol in it, we usually got drunk eventually. And that is one of the key elements of addiction. There are many alcoholics who may not drink for a long time. But the minute they take that first drink, they can't seem to predict what will happen after that. And I know people have done all kinds of things. Change, as I said, change the chaser, change the friends, do geographical changes, go somewhere else to live. But once they took that first drink, it doesn't matter where they were. Most likely will take them into another drunk. Question 4, it says, have you had to have an eye opener upon awakening during the past year? And this is what AA says. Do you need to drink to get started or stop shaking? This is a pretty sure sign that you're not drinking socially. And that is in the cage question, and that is the eye opener I referred to earlier on. That is really a sign of chronic stage drinking. You know, alcoholism is a disease, but there are different stages. You have the beginning stage, the middle stage, and the chronic stage. By the time you start having the shakes and hallucinations and all of that, you have reached the chronic stage of alcoholism. That is a pretty sure sign that you need to seriously consider stopping. And question 5 says, do you envy people who can drink without getting into trouble? And this is what it says. At one time or another, most of us have wondered why we were not like most people who really can take it or leave it. And yes, now so far I would have answered yes to all of these questions. And yes, you would, that is where the saying comes that misery likes company. So that a person who is drinking, he don't want to drink. An alcoholic will not feel comfortable drinking with social drinkers, because these will be people who could say, well, look, boy, I've had enough. I have to go, I have this errand to run, and they will leave. And when I look back in my own drinking experience, we would go to the restaurant. In those days, I work in Chabonas, and we'll go to Shanghai restaurant, and a group of us, and we'd order food, and we start drinking, and the magistrate sometime, or even the clerk of the peace, I work in the courthouse, would leave because they were not alcoholics. They'll just and said, fellas, you enjoy yourselves, we're going. But there were a group of us who would remain, and of course, when these guys left, he'll speak them, we'll say, they were afraid of their wife, or they're just stingy, they don't want to spend their money, and all kinds of things. But the truth was, those of us who remained, I stayed long enough to realize we were all alcoholics in the beginning stage. They all became alcoholics later on in life because we couldn't just leave the rum alone once we took that first drink. So question 6 says, have you had problems connected with drinking during the past year? And it says, be honest. Doctors say that if you have a problem with alcohol and keep on drinking, it will get worse, never better. Eventually, you will die or end up in an institution for the rest of your life. The only hope is to stop drinking. Now, this is a disease where you can only end up in 3 places, either prison, madhouse, or the cemetery. And I don't think anybody has aspirations. They're not hurried to go to any of those places. But if you keep drinking, you are going to eventually end up in one of those places. And you out there listening who's saying, no, that will not happen to me. You can add the word YET, it's a small little word that says yet. Once you continue, it has not happened yet. But if you keep drinking, that's what's going to happen eventually. So at this point, we will take a little break. We have reached at question 6, and I will ask you all to join part 2 of the program, where we'll continue with the questions as we go along, and you can answer for yourself. Think and be honest. You don't have to tell this to anyone. But if you have a problem with drinking, help is available. All you have to do is after the program, you call me at 671-3040, or you can text me at 768-5925. So we take a break at this point, and we come back in a few minutes and continue with the questioning.